So today we're talking about solving word problems and consecutive integers. Before we begin, can somebody tell me what consecutive means? So consecutive means like a number right next to another number. So for instance, the numbers 1 and 2 are consecutive integers, okay? If I said, can you name 2 consecutive even integers, it would be 2 and 4. And if I said 2 consecutive odd integers, you would say 1 and 3. Is everybody okay with this? All right. So today you're going to write an equation for each problem and then you're going to solve it algebraically. So you need to pay attention to what is being written in the word problem. First of all, what does product mean? Good, the answer to a multiplication problem. The product of 2 consecutive positive integers. Now, did they say even or odd there? No, they just said that it has to be a positive number, right? So you just need 2 consecutive integers, which as an example, we would say 1 and 2 are consecutive positive integers. Do we agree with that? Okay, so what I normally do is once I have the numbers that are kind of giving me an example of what they're talking about in the problem, your first number is always your variable, which we're going to put as x. And then what do you add to 1 in order to get to 2? 1. So 2 would be x plus 1, because you would take whatever value your first number is and you'd add 1 to it to get the next consecutive number. Yes? You can, but part of the problem is writing the algebraic expression, which you need to know how to do, which is what we're talking about right now, and part of it is finding the numbers. So even if you know the answer, you need to also be able to write the algebraic expression. Exactly. So that's why we're talking through all this. Okay? What is the algebraic expression? That's what I'm talking about right now. We haven't finished it yet. Okay? So, no. So here we go. We have x is our first number and x plus 1 is our second number. Okay? So we're going to write our equation out. It says the product of 2 consecutive positive integers. So what does product mean? Multiplying. So we have to multiply these two together. So I'd write that as x times x plus 1. Okay. We're learning how to write algebraic expressions, okay? Obviously, some of this is pretty easy. I know some of you can do this in your head, but we do start with easy things, so it makes sense, so that when you get to the harder ones, you understand how to write the algebraic expression. Okay, is means what? Equals, and then 42. Okay, so to solve this for x, what would I end up doing? Distributing, very good. So when we multiply through, we get x squared, and x times 1 is x equals 42. And when we've been solving these problems, what do I always end up needing to do in order to solve for x?
Set it to 0.
Good. Set it equal to 0. So in order to do that, I'm going to subtract 42.
Subtract 42, guys.
Okay, so we have x squared plus x minus 42 equals 0.
Can I say the answer?
No, not yet. So remember that we're always looking for a number that multiplies to be the number in front of the x. So in this case, the number is a, or I'm sorry, adds to be that number. And that's right. And multiplies to be your last. So the two numbers that work are x plus 7 and x minus 6. Those multiply to be negative 42 and add to be 1. And when you set those equal to 0, what do they equal? Good. This is where you need to be careful, okay? Because if you go back to the beginning, it said the product of 2 consecutive positive integers. So one of these numbers isn't going to work. Which one does not work? The negative 7. So that means that my x value is 6. And then the number next to it would be 6 plus 1, which is
X plus 1, 7.
7. So my answer is 6 and 7. They also asked you, find the two integers and their sum. So what is the sum of 6 and 7? 13. So there's a couple parts to my answer.
Easy cheesy, pumpkin easy.
Okay, do we have questions on example 1 before I move on to example 2, which is going to start to get a little bit more complicated?
Why did this question?
What? Are we good? Okay. Anybody have questions? All right, example 2. This time it says find. Can we see this okay, or do you guys want me to switch the lights? Switch the lights? Okay.
I can see that.
Yeah, we just flip them. There we go. Oh, nope, nope, nope. There we go. Okay. So find two consecutive even integers. So I'm going to stop right there. Two consecutive even integers. So what is my example?
2 and 4.
Okay. So we have the numbers 2 and 4. Those are consecutive even integers. Which algebraically we would write the 2 would represent
X plus 2.
x.
4.
The 2 would represent x. Your first number is your x. And then how many do I add to 2 to get to 4? 2. So the other one's going to be x plus 2. Okay, so going back now to our problem, we kind of have what our two variables are going to be. And it says such that the square of the second, well, which one would be the second number?
X plus 2.
Good. So when we say the square of the second, we're going to write x plus 2 squared. Okay, that's the square of the second number. Decreased by, what does decrease mean? Okay, decreased by the first number, which is x. And then it says is, which means equals 134. Now, to solve this, what do you think we need to do first? What?
Exponents.
Yeah, we need to get rid of this exponent, but how would I multiply this out?
X plus 2, X plus 2.
X plus 2, x plus 2, which we would use a
Wow.
box to multiply it out, unless you want to do it a different way, which is also okay. So I'm going to make my box, and I have x and 2 and x and a positive 2. When we multiply there, x times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x. 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times 2 is 4. So that ends up multiplying out to be x squared plus 4x plus 4, and then I still have minus x equals 134. Okay, so next, what do you think I'm going to do? Combine your like terms. Good. So I have a 4x and a negative x, which will make what? Good. So x squared plus 3x plus 4 equals 134. Now what? Good. We want it set equal to 0, so I'm going to do that by subtracting 134. Good. And when you get that, you get negative 130. Correct? Equals 0. So what numbers factor and multiply to be negative 130 and add to be 3? Did I do something wrong? 13 and 10. And which one will be negative? Good. So we're going to have x minus 10 and x plus 13 equals 0. Okay, so again, these add to be 3, multiply to be negative 130. And when I set those equal to 0, what does x equal? 10 and negative 13.
That doesn't work because they're not consecutive.
Okay, so we go back to the problem, and it says find two consecutive even integers. Most of the time, one of the numbers is not going to work. So out of 10 and negative 13, which one does not work? Negative 13. It is not an even integer, is it? Okay, So that means that x is going to be
X, 10 and 12.
10, and then 10 plus 2 makes 12. This time they didn't ask me about my sum or anything, so they just wanted the two numbers, and those answers or numbers are 10 and 12.
And last but not least,
Okay. So, are there questions on example 2? Do we feel kind of okay with this? Yes, no? Anybody? Kind of? Okay. Example 3. 2 consecutive odd integers. So I always start with figuring out what my variables are going to be. So I'm going to give you about 10 seconds. I want you to try to get the two variables on your own, just like how I did for your even integers and your integers. No. Just like your x and x plus 1, or x and x plus 2, or x and x plus 3.
oh, I get it. That took me a minute.
Okay, so consecutive odd integers. An example of consecutive odd integers we would say would be 1 and 3. Do we agree? So if 1 represents x, how many do I add to that to get to 3? 2. So if you go back and look at our other examples, notice that our even ones have, even and odd, have the same variables, don't they? And then just plain integers are x and x plus 1. So basically there's two different ones you're going to use, either x and x plus 1 or x and x plus 2 when we're dealing with even and odd and integers. Are we okay? Yes? All right. Okay, this says such that the square of the larger. So out of x and x plus 2, which one is larger?
X plus 2.
Okay, so we're going to square that. So x plus 2 squared. What does is mean?
Equal.
Equals. So right now I'm going to put the equal sign. 10 more than 5 times the smaller. Well, whenever you see more than or less than in a problem, but you already did the equal sign, this means adding or subtracting. Also, it means that you're adding something to something you already have. So you always go to the second part and write that first. So what is 5 times the smaller? 5x plus 10. Now more than, if you had done 10 plus 5x, the answer doesn't really matter when you're adding. What really matters is when you have less than. When you're subtracting, it will change things a lot. So just remember that when you see like more than or less than, you're going to go to the end and write that part first. Do you guys remember that from Algebra 1? No? Okay, well hopefully you'll remember it now. All right, so now we're going to solve this. First thing we need to do is multiply that out. Did I already multiply that out right here? Yeah. So we already know that x plus 2 squared is what? X squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 5x plus 10. What's my next step here?
Combine my 10.
We want it to be set equal to 0, right? So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 5x and subtract 10 at the same time. Hopefully we're okay with that. I'm going to line them up here on the other side. Okay, so now I have x squared and then what? Minus x minus 6 equals 0. So now we're looking for two numbers that multiply to be negative 6 and add to be negative 1.
Negative 3 and 2.
Negative 3 and 2 is correct. So we have x minus 3 and x plus 2 equals 0. Always double check that you have it right, because sometimes you think you have it and you don't. So negative 3 and 2 does make negative 1. It does multiply to be negative 6. So when I set those equal to 0, what does x equal? 3 and negative 2. So go back to your problem. Find two consecutive odd integers. So out of these choices, which one is odd?
3.
3 is odd, so 2 is out. So that means I have 3 for x And then 3 plus 2 makes 5. So these are my 2 consecutive odd integers. Questions?